Hey, book lovers! Welcome to While I Read. Today, we're going to be talking about science fiction. And as you can see, we have a special guest, my very own science fiction expert, my husband Ryan. So, Ryan, introduce yourself.
Well, as she said, I'm Ryan. I'm Katie's husband. I don't know that I'd call myself a science fiction expert, but I'm a computer programmer. I work for a video game company out of Tampa, Florida, and I've just always enjoyed things like video games, science fiction. I watch a lot of it on TV. I build my own computers and I tinker with computers and just do a lot of things like that Katie doesn't tend to understand, but she's supportive of it.
And Ryan has helped me so much as we've gotten started with this YouTube channel. He's usually behind the camera, making sure that my shots look good, helping me get all the technology set up. I could not have done this without Ryan, so I really appreciate him.
Well, I'm always happy to help.
So today we're going to talk about science fiction. So Ryan, at the risk of getting a very long answer, why do you love sci-fi so much?
Well, I could go on for a while, but I like the sense of adventure and the sense of wonder and the idea of just what the future holds. It's just unknown and it's just limitless. What will we have in the future? You think about looking to the past. What would people 100 years ago think about our world today? And then you project that forward 100 years in the future and you say, what technology could we possibly have? I also like that it typically has themes of heroism, and it's generally meant to make you think a lot about things and to question a lot of things in your life. That was the point of the Stargate series, was every episode had very tough moral dilemmas and things to ask yourself. And in the case of Honor Harrington, you're learning about heroism. You want to be Honor Harrington. You want to be that kind of hero that says, I'm going to do what's right no matter what, no matter how hard it is.
As long as I've known Ryan, I've known that he's loved the Honor Harrington series by David Weber. Before we got married, I tried to read the first one in the series, and I just couldn't get into it and gave up. But just recently, I decided that I would give it one more try. So I picked up On Basilisk Station by David Weber and started reading. But before we get into Honor Harrington, let's talk about sci-fi in general. Ryan, how did you get into sci-fi, and what are some of your interests in sci-fi?
Well, like many people around our generation, my gateway to sci-fi was Star Wars. I saw the movies when I was probably 5, maybe 4 years old even. I'm not old enough to have seen them in theaters, but they came on TV and we had movie sets of them. And so that really got me into sci-fi. And I loved from that point on space and just the idea of, this grand adventure out there, this just endless universe that you could explore. So I watched TV shows like Stargate SG-1 on Sci-Fi Channel and Firefly and its movie Serenity, which were excellent.
Yes, I watched those with him. Well, I watched Serenity, the movie, and it really was good.
And then I've also watched anime, sci-fi anime like Gundam, and I play video games. I said I play a lot of story games, but I've also played sci-fi games, the Star Wars games, and then Star Fox, which we have on the shelf there. And I've read a lot of sci-fi books. I've read Ender's Game, Dune, Star Wars books, and of course Honor Harrington.
Of course, being who I am, I'm always recommending books to Ryan. And you have read quite a few books that I've recommended. I think the first one was before we got married. I recommended The Blue Sword by Robin McKinley.
It was very good, and she has good recommendations.
I also recommended the Amelia Peabody series, which I don't think I've talked about on here, and I'll probably do a whole episode about that one day. That's a really good series that Ryan enjoyed.
It's kind of a, I don't know, female Indiana Jones, not as much focused on the supernatural, but on the archaeology and things like that.
Yeah, it's a great series. We also listened to Emma by Jane Austen on tape when we took a road trip to Texas a few years ago. So he loves me because he listened to Emma on the whole drive to Texas.
I was a captive audience, but it was good. It was enjoyable.
So Ryan has read a lot of books that I've recommended. I've actually only read one book that he's recommended that I can think of. Do you remember what that book is?
Would be the Honor Harrington series.
Well, before that.
No.
I read Around the World in 80 Days.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that. We watched the mini-series that came on a couple of years ago on PBS, and Ryan got the book and read it and said it was good, and I read it too. So Ryan does have good recommendations, but I just don't read as many books that he recommends, I guess because I have different tastes than he does.
Our interests are different, so she just doesn't like a lot of the same things that I do, and it's not that they're bad recommendations, we just have different taste.
So I never read the Honor Harrington books, even though I know you love them. And there are a couple of reasons for it. One is that these are sci-fi books set in space. And even though, yes, I liked Star Wars, I liked Serenity, but in general, I'm not really a big sci-fi or space person. And then I also know from what you've said and what I've read about the books that they're war books. And I'm just not really a war book person. I don't think I've ever read a war book before. So those are a couple of reasons why I wasn't sure about reading these books. There are a couple of reasons why I thought I'd like the Honor Harrington books. Even though I'm not really a sci-fi person, I do like fantasy. I love the world building, the epic battles, and the magic. And so maybe I'll like these things in space.
Well, Honor Harrington doesn't have magic, but it does have some of those things.
The space stuff is magic.
Well, in the case of Honor Harrington, David Weber's books are considered more hard sci-fi, and this means that his books are sticking towards kind of real science, theoretical things that could actually exist, and he avoids things that are just plain magic. Whereas in something like Star Wars, even the technological aspects of it are still magical in that they could never really exist. The starfighters would not behave that way in space. No one would build a Star Destroyer to the design that it is. And of course, Star Wars has the Force, where none of those things exist in something like an Honor Harrington book.
I'll still say the space stuff in the Honor Harrington books seems like magic to me. So the other reason that I thought I might like the books is that I could tell that Honor Harrington was a really strong female character who gets things done. And so that was a reason why I thought that I might like these books and why I ultimately decided to give them a try. So I decided to pick up Basilisk Station and give it a try. And by the way, I've just got to put this out there. I have a really hard time saying On Basilisk Station. So I'm going to try to avoid saying it, and I'll probably lisp a little bit when I say it throughout. So just fair warning.
It's a very difficult title to say.
You try saying it. Basilisk Station. It's hard to say. So anyway, I picked up that book and started reading it. So full disclosure, in the prologue, I almost quit. The prologue has a bunch of stuff about all of these generals together, talking about a battle, talking about places that I've never heard about. They're talking about space stuff. I couldn't figure out who anybody was or what was going on, and I didn't really care, and it was boring. But I kept reading just because of you.
Yeah, it's the world building of Honor Harrington. He is building a complete world, and you're dropped right in the middle of it, not knowing anything. And so there's a lot of details to fill in.
So for some people, the prologue might be off-putting. It was for me. But I continued reading, and I did start liking the book more when I got to chapter 1. In chapter 1, we meet Honor Harrington. She's smart, she's hardworking, and as the book starts, she's just gotten to be in charge of her ship, the Fearless. But then she finds out that her ship is being refitted because of political fighting that Honor has no control over, and the ship will basically be useless after all the changes are made. The book goes into a lot of what I'm calling space things, like energy fields and different types of weapons that are being added and removed from the ship. But the basic gist is that the ship is not going to be any good after all these changes are made at the whim of some powerful politician. But Honor is still going to be expected to win battles with this ship. And even though Honor is frustrated, she does her best to make things work. Early on in the book, she and her ship and the crew get sent to Basilisk Station, really as a punishment, because even though it's obvious to the reader that Honor is good at her job, she just can't get anything done with her stupid ship. As you can tell, I wasn't too interested in all the weapons and the space terminology. Do you want to try to explain that a little better?
Well, one of the main reasons that David Weber goes into all of this is, as I said, it's more of a hard sci-fi, and he's trying to stick to things that are realistic. It's not something we could actually build today, but with our knowledge of science, it's not outside of the realm of reality. And he also wants you to understand the limitations of the technology within his universe, because then you understand when battles happen and when things happen, what actually is possible and what isn't possible. So you have a really grounded idea of how the world works. And as I said, he tries to avoid, any kind of magical technology, with the kind of exception of hyperspace travel. Space is just too big. You have to have some way to get to new planets and new stars that are just so far away that it would take literal centuries to get there without some form of hyperspace.
So you would say that hyperspace travel is magic?
I suppose so.
See, they do have magic in them. After Honor gets sent to Basilisk Station, the guy who's supposed to be in charge there, who has some unpleasant history with Honor, tells her that he's leaving. She and her ship will be in charge there. That's something that a single ship just can't do, but Honor decides that she's going to do it anyway. She just keeps getting faced with these impossibly difficult tasks and figuring out a way to do them. And you can't help admiring somebody like that.
And the good thing about that is, even though you say the tasks are impossible, they're believable. She doesn't just overcome it and you think, oh, how could she ever really do that? It's believable that she actually could overcome it in the way she does.
So we've gotten into this a little already, but what are some of the things that you like about Honor Harrington?
Well, I just liked the character and the way she's described as just like, when she's in battle, she is just cold as can be and just strikes fear into people. He routinely describes her stare as liquid helium, which for science nerds would know that's one of the coldest things on Earth. But she always gets things done. She does her job. She doesn't let things get her down. And she comes up with these clever tactical solutions that win battles, but they're believable. And she doesn't always win the battle. There are times later in the book where she suffers heavy losses. She loses battles and things don't always go her way, but she overcomes it and she keeps fighting and never gives up.
So, as I said, all the space stuff is basically just gibberish to me. But I did love watching Honor find her leadership style. She treats people with respect and courtesy. She doesn't blame her crew for things they can't control, even though she's blamed for things that she can't control. And she always remains calm outwardly, even though we as the reader know that she's upset or excited about certain things. I actually feel like I could learn a lot from her leadership style. Another cool thing about Honor is she has a tree cat. Ryan, explain what a tree cat is, because you'll do it better than I will.
Well, a tree cat is one of the very few alien species that exist in this series. David Weber actually focuses mostly on humans, and the tree cats are a species of cat that has 6 legs instead of 4, and they live on a planet in the star system that Honor Harrington is from. They're intelligent, fully intelligent, to the point that later in the series they can actually communicate. And they have a form of empathy. They can read people's emotions and react to people's emotions and just sense those emotions in people. And what they do is they form a bond with a specific person. In this case, her tree cat is Nimitz. and it formed a bond with her when she was, I believe, 8 or 9 years old. And it's a lifelong bond, and they're just linked forever. They're always together. They can't really be separated. He doesn't really explain if there's any sort of physical problem if they were forcibly separated for a long time, but they're just always together.
So the tree cat was one of the really cool parts of the book to me. I just love that kind of world building. The book also has some very exciting battles in it.
Yeah, what makes the battles really good is that David Weber makes it clear very early on in the series that he's not afraid to bring serious harm to main characters and even kill main characters. So when a battle starts, you never know what the outcome of that battle will be. I often found myself late at night getting ready to go to bed, and then a battle would start and realize I had to read for the next hour.
That's one of the hazards of reading. So overall, I did really enjoy reading On Basilisk Station. As I said, the book did have some parts that I didn't enjoy as much, all of the space stuff, but I loved the character of Honor. I loved the exciting battles, and I'm glad I read it. And I do plan on eventually reading more books in the series. So Ryan, if you could choose what book I read next, what would you recommend?
Well, a book I recently read that was really good was The Aeronauts Windlass by Jim Butcher. It's more a mix of fantasy and sci-fi, but it's very good.
Well, maybe I will give that one a shot. And Ryan, thank you for coming on today. I love you.
I know. Now, go fight the Empire while I read.